Smart Alex Show, baby!
So today on the podcast, we've got another very special guest, the man who first introduced me to the wide world of sports business, as his class is named. This gentleman's been a heavy hitter in the sports business world for many years now, having worked with ABC Sports, IMG, even opening up his own consultancy where he's negotiated a few deals for a couple of things you guys may have heard of, like, I don't know, the Fiesta Bowl with clients like the Big 12, Boise State, Nebraska, and of course our very own University of Texas athletic department, and the list goes on and on. The dude's been quoted by a couple publications around the country, like, I don't know, the New York Times, ESPN, CBS Sports, Sports Biz Daily, just to name a few. So welcome to Lulla. It's a pleasure to have you, my man. I'm excited. How are you?
Thanks, Alec. I appreciate that, and I'm glad you actually read my resume. So that was very good. You've done at least 40 seconds of preparation, which is excellent.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, at least I could prep for that. Yeah, it's kind of hard to find. I see you're not in the LinkedIn game, so I had to go to just UT Austin, the faculty thing.
I'm on zero social media.
There you go.
One of those people who believes in if I was going to be on anything, I'd be on LinkedIn, but yeah. I think the rest of social media, it just, for me, it's just a way to get into trouble, and I got no interest.
For most people, that's actually what it is, right? A way to get into trouble. I'm sure that probably has a better impact on your life's overall happiness than the rest of the world. So my respects to you in that regard.
Thank you.
Yeah. So what different roles have you worked in within the sports industry?
Well, as you may have mentioned, I started as a lawyer. So I was a lawyer, business affairs for ABC Sports. And then, ABC, we used to buy sports events and talent. We would hire producers, directors, on-the-air people. So IMG was a seller of that. So I just wanted to try the other side of the same deal. Instead of being a buyer, I was a seller. So I tried that for a few years. And then, I kind of did my own thing, not as a lawyer as much, but more as someone who was an expert in the television marketplace and could value what a sports event was worth on television. And so that's primarily what I did after I left IMG. And then occasionally there'd be a deal that we're involved being a lawyer instead of a television quote unquote expert. And I also did some deals for people that worked in television, not as much on the air people, but more executives who worked in television, both sports and news. So it's been a good fun run and an interesting run for me. So I've been very lucky.
Yeah. So back then, what was ABC Sports like in terms of the overall marketplace? Because obviously the industry's changed a lot. What was it like when you were there?
Well, they were back then, as you said, you make it sound like there were dinosaurs roaming the earth still, but technology-wise, it kind of was like that. But ABC Sports at the time that I got there was the dominant sports network. So it was part of the same company as ESPN. Both of them were owned by ABC, and this was before any of the ABC mergers with Disney and before that with a company called Capital Cities. And so ABC, we had the Olympics, we had Monday Night Football, we had baseball, we were, I would say easily the dominant sports broadcast network. Again, ESPN was teeny back then.
Just a blip on the radar.
Yeah, they were starting to grow, but still they had no marquee events. They did the draft, but they did not do any live NFL games. They were doing mostly college stuff, and didn't have the NBA back then. Didn't have a lot of premier live sports like they have now. So ABC, we were the big brother. They were the annoying little brother, and ABC was a big deal. It was a very big deal back in the early mid 80s to the 90s.
That's crazy to see how they went from the little brother to really being the industry leader for a few decades there. And now obviously there's a lot more competition in the space. But what do you think ESPN is still the leader in the space?
Oh, it's not even close. They're the leader by far.
Okay.
So in both, in terms of money and everything else, they make the most money easily. So And that'll be the case for for a while. As you know, the business is changing. It's going in the direction of direct to consumer instead of the big cable bundle, where the consumer will get to pick each network that he or she wants to watch. But right now, the big bundle is still where all the money is, with the 400 channel bundle. So all the people, ESPN's in whatever 83 million homes right now, or a little more. And many of those don't even watch ESPN. Probably 70% of them will never turn on ESPN, but they're all paying for it. So it's it's a great business model, but it won't last forever, and they know that. And so they're starting ESPN Plus, and that's where the business is headed. But right now, ESPN Plus is a money loser, and ESPN is a big money generator.
No doubt, no doubt. I think that's an interesting point you bring up, right? Because a lot of people my age, they've been interacting within the digital space with all these different other sports media companies and brands. So their sentiment is kind of like, oh, ESPN's falling behind, but still, from a fundamental business perspective, ESPN is by far the top dog, just in terms of revenue, assets, all that good stuff. Yeah. So do you think eventually the whole streaming route, you think that's going to pay off for ESPN in terms of like just actually being able to make money in the long run, since everyone's, cord cutting and things of that nature?
Yeah, no, I think it will. It's going to be a very different business. So, they won't be in nearly as many homes. They'll have to charge more money. But they're smart. They make these long-term deals. So if you want to watch the SEC, for instance, they've got long-term SEC deals. Some of the other deals in college will be coming up soon. And their really big deal coming up is their NFL negotiation. And that's going to be very important to them. They pay a lot of money right now for the NFL, and their deal is up after next season. So that's going to be a very key negotiation. But, they make these long-term deals. So if you want to watch these events, you're going to have to subscribe to ESPN, and whether it's ESPN Plus direct, where you're dealing directly with ESPN, whether you're subscribing as part of a cable bundle with the Spectrum or a Direct TV, or a Uverse or something like that.
Yeah.
ESPN is going to be around for a long time, and they're going to be a big deal in the industry for a long time. Right now, I don't see anyone particularly challenging them. NBC, for instance, as you may know, is shutting down NBCSN,
yeah,
which was their competitor for ESPN. And and Fox has got Fox Sports 1, or FS1 and FS2, but and they're successful, but not nearly to the same extent that ESPN is. So ESPN is going to be the big dog for a long time.
All right, there you have it, folks. So you mentioned the rights deals coming up, right? You've obviously negotiated a bunch of big deals. What is it like for a sports lawyer, like in that room negotiating big deals like this?
Well, it's exciting. There's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of people's jobs. There's a lot of important stuff going on, and it's exciting. Gets your adrenaline up. But it's not like you sit there in a room, for an hour, and these deals are generally negotiated over a substantial period of time. So it's not like you get in a room and you knock it out and that's it. Mm-hmm. It's you're setting it up with phone calls. You're meeting once, then you're meeting again, then you're meeting again. And so, for an NFL deal with ESPN, for instance, that's going to take, months of negotiation and back and forth, and it'll be interesting. Although, to be perfectly frank, the NFL is so powerful these days, and they've been that for a while, that it's not a lot of negotiation. You can hopefully get their number down a little bit, but it's almost like they're too important, and they're reasonable, but they tell you what the number is, and you generally have to go with that number, or something close to that. So it'll be really interesting, because again, ESPN right now is paying double what NBC, CBS, and Fox are paying, essentially, for a much inferior package that doesn't include being in the Super Bowl rotation. So ESPN wants, as on behalf of ABC, I don't think the Super Bowl will ever be on cable, quote unquote cable television, but ESPN will put on ABC, but they want to be in the Super Bowl rotation, and they want, generally, for all that money, they want to pay less money, but but they're going to pay more than the other guys, and for that they want a better schedule and more playoff games.
No doubt. So how much does having the rights to like just, because obviously they only have Monday Night Football, but they also have the rights to, put it on Sports Center, just run it on all these other shows. How much does that play into the amount they pay for it? For the
Yeah,
rights?
that's a good point, because that's really important. So, when you have to program 24 hours a day, you need a lot of highlight rights, and so that's part of their deal, is all those highlight rights. But I think Fox has a similar deal. They don't pay as much money, but they get,
Yeah,
I think for FS1, FS2, they get some highlight rights as well. So,
no doubt.
ESPN is paying a lot, and they've got to figure out how to knock that number down a bit, because that's a big hit to their bottom line right now in terms of how much money they're paying for the NFL.
For sure. So not to give away your competitive edge, right? But what are some things that you do within a negotiation room to maybe gain an edge or really sway the negotiation in your direction? Like I know in the sports contracts class I took with you last year, we went over like anchoring and other techniques. What are some things that you think are very relevant to, negotiating a deal to sway in your business's favor?
Well, when you're dealing with big events or important talent, you need to come in with facts. You need to come in with what similar deals are getting elsewhere, what the marketplace is, what kind of revenue you expect to generate from. There's no real secret. So the NFL or some other major sports league essentially knows when you put their events on the air, how much you're getting, how much you're selling commercials for, what your business is like, how much money you're making from other things. And so at that level, you're really dealing with objective facts. So what you're just trying to do is come to some sort of reasonable understanding with the other side. You're not trying to pull any fast ones. You're not trying to do anything like that.
For sure.
You're just trying to come to a fair deal for both sides, where both sides can walk away not being unhappy, but saying this was a tough deal, but it's a fair deal. And you just got to be upfront and honest with people. I mean, there are negotiations that you go in that you'll have more leverage, and that that you might want to try some of those psychological techniques like anchoring that you talked about, where you make the first offer. And again, studies have shown, as you remember from that class, that that the result will most closely correlate around that first offer. So you should be the first one to make an offer and make it higher than it would be otherwise, without being out of bounds. And but in general, what you want to do is make a deal that makes sense for both sides, where both sides get something, because in many cases you'll be coming back and making other deals with that same person or the same organization, and you don't want any bad feelings. You want both sides to walk away feeling like this is a fair deal.
No doubt. Yeah, that I feel like reputation's huge in the industry, right? You don't want to be known as that guy that pulls a fast one and screws people over.
No question. It's hard. It's hard to end up with a good reputation in the industry and making a lot of deals that way. Although you can do that and end up president of the United States. So who knows?
That's funny, man. One of the biggest things I enjoyed about your class is that a lot of people think, within negotiation or business, that you kind of have to act like a snake or try to, do these little sleazy things to get things to go your way. But, from the speakers you brought on and from talking about your own experiences, I realized that just bringing like objective facts to the table, along with just being straightforward and honest, and maybe if you have a little leverage, watching what you say, but just being honest and straightforward is honestly more bound to work out in your favor in the deal. That's what I took away from a lot of the lessons and the speakers in your class. Would you say that's so?
Yeah, that's probably the best thing to take away is that, being prepared and arguing your side for sure, and being very dedicated to your interests and to what your position is. But at the same time, you've got to be fair. You have to have facts, and you've got to be honest. And that's particularly true in early parts of your career, because you're not going to start your career, come out of college, or even a few years out of school with having leverage over anybody for any negotiation. You're going to be negotiating little deals and
For sure.
whatever, but you're going to be setting your reputation up at that point. And then reputation is everything in not only in sports and in television, but in any business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for someone trying to break into the sports space, what advice do you have for them to not only break in, but actually survive and lead a successful career as you have within the sports space?
Well, breaking in is very different than when I broke in,
Okay.
a long, long, long time ago. So, when I broke in, there were very few jobs, especially in what I did. So, at ABC and most of the other networks, there were only, well, first of all, there was, for sports networks, there was really ESPN, which again was small at that point. There was ABC, CBS, and NBC. So Fox wasn't even a network then.
Huh.
There was no such thing as, the golf channel or the tennis channel, or, again, FS. Well, wasn't a lot of cable running around. So there were few jobs, but there were also many fewer, kids or young adults trying to get into those positions, because there were no courses that you take at UT. There were no sports negotiations classes. There were no, sports media classes. There were none of those things. And so, now kids want to there are no sports management classes either. Mm-hmm. So, very few people had any real knowledge coming out of college like they do now. So it was just a completely different environment, and it was mostly based on, on contacts and trying to get, it's not dissimilar today, but back then you just had to get your foot in the door for one of the few jobs that there were. Now there's websites. So, what I would recommend, if you want to work at the NFL, go on the NFL.com website, go on the websites of all the teams, and looking what what their job postings are, see who the executives are who are in charge of areas that you want to work in, and write them emails, try to get a hold of them. It's not easy, and you'll get a lot of closed doors, but all you need is one, and getting your foot in the door. Right now is a difficult time with with the pandemic and everything. There's not a lot of hiring going on right now, and it's real difficult for for you guys coming right out of school.
Brutal.
So but you just got to be patient and keep at it. And perseverance is so important.
Perseverance is very important, especially in times like these, right? Like, obviously all industries are getting hit by the pandemic, but sports in particular. Like, I had interned at ESPN this past summer, and then this fall they had their worst layoffs in a number of decades. So it's a crazy time, particularly within the sports industry. So perseverance is definitely important. But yeah, I appreciate that insight, Professor Lulla. Just a couple little rapid fire questions. So what are three characteristics a sports lawyer has to have to succeed?
Well, you've got to have attention to detail.
Okay.
So, detail is really important. It's interesting. I read, a lot of papers by students, and they misspell things. Mm-hmm. They get facts wrong, et cetera. So attention to detail is very important. And, almost in any position that you're in, unless you're, some sort of creative genius or something. But, for most business positions, attention to detail is very, very important, and for a lot of creative positions too, but particularly business or law. And again, as we discussed, honesty is incredibly important, in terms of your reputation and everything else. And the third thing is just, you have to be really thorough. So read something once, read it again, write something, write it again, and give it a lot of thought, and also bounce it off other people if you can. You don't always have the opportunity to do that, but sometimes you just get in your own little mindset, and it's really good to get some ideas from other people that you trust and that you respect. So so I think those things are good tips, to the extent that I can give any good tips.
No doubt. I think those are huge. I'd imagine a lawyer of all people has to have an incredibly high attention to detail, right? A lawyer, an accountant, and then honesty, that's huge. And just like you said, being thorough, that goes back to just getting someone you trust to have another pair of eyes on it. Because like you said, we can, get trapped in our own ego and be like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I know this, but getting another set of eyes on it's huge. So what's going to be bigger in the next 20 years, the NBA or the NFL in your eyes?
That's a good question. In my opinion, it's in terms of television, it's the NFL is just a better television sport. Every game is much more important. There's only 16, soon to be 17 games. So, the NBA, it's a different, they play 82 games. There's games that aren't that important. And, unless, the basketball will be eventually a bigger, in my opinion, a bigger participation sport just because of the dangers involved in football, but they've made football less dangerous, but you definitely can't take, you can't take a lot of the danger out of football. It's a contact sport in a way that basketball, which is a contact sport, but not in the same way.
Exactly.
I think basketball will be a bigger participation sport if it's not already, but I think football is just the best sport on television in terms of, being a spectator on television. I think there's nothing like football on television. So I think that'll stay the biggest.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. The NBA is going globally at a exponential pace with most of their superstars now, like Lulla from my hometown of Dallas or Giannis. They're all growing the international, popularity of the sport. But like I said, football, just when you watch it, 17 regular season games, every game matters. It's exciting television, and something about just human beings going at each other so physically and brutally. It's captivating for the masses. So I see what you're saying there.
But you actually make a great point, which is that, I was talking about domestically, but internationally, football, it will just never really catch on. It's, there's a little bit too much time. I mean, cricket, I guess, is big in terms of a sport with a lot of spare time, but, a lot of slow moving. But
it's forever.
But football, because the rules are too complex, and you can't just watch football generally and pick it up. Domestically, football will be bigger. Internationally, there's no question that that basketball will be bigger, and also because people outside the U.S. just don't play football.
No doubt.
Football will. I think the NFL has tried. They're trying to with London, Mexico City. They're trying to expand it globally, but those games are successful. But in terms of participation and everything else. Basketball and obviously soccer or football, European football, and a lot of other sports will be bigger globally than our American football will ever be.
Yeah, no doubt. It'll be interesting to see how, the NFL tries to expand. I know they've been trying to do it in Europe, the UK, and Mexico. It's actually getting very popular. There's a dude on the Cowboys right now that, he grew up playing over there, and he's a pretty good player. But last question before you go. What's been your favorite memories or takeaways from working within sports?
Well, kind of my single favorite experience probably was, I just got to ABC, and this is, 1984, so it was a long time ago. But I got there on July 2nd, 1984. And I was just, thinking, this is going to be, I'm going to do a lot of grunt work and whatever. And so my boss says to me, what are you doing for the next month? And I said, I don't know, you're my boss. I just got here. I'll do whatever I'm supposed to be doing. And he said, well, we have the Olympics in Los Angeles right now. The Olympics were starting in a couple of weeks. We need you to go out there. So, I literally a week or two after I started work, I'm out in Los Angeles at the Olympics. And it was a very cool Olympics in 84. And so I was out there for several weeks. And fortunately for me, most of the work had been done before I actually got out to the Olympics, because they had been preparing for this for several years. And so by the time I got there wasn't a lot to do other than go to watch some events and go to parties. So I wouldn't exactly call it a work experience, but it was a work-related experience that was fantastic.
Man, hey, a summer in LA with not much work to do, just having a good time and enjoying the events. That sounds awesome, man. Well, Professor Lulla, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for taking time to come on the show, and it was nice catching up with you and just talking, man.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. I enjoyed this, Alec. Thank you very much, and good luck with the podcast. Hopefully, you'll get some better guests than me going forward.
No, man, you're as big as they come. You've done a lot within the space. You should think about starting one yourself. You brought on a bunch of awesome speakers last spring. I mean, Bob Iger doesn't get much bigger than that.
No, he's a very nice man and very gracious for him to come on. But I'll leave the podcasting to you.
All right, man. Well, you take it easy and good luck.
Thank you, Alec. You too.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon. Bye bye.
Don't be such a smart aleck.